Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We have a policy here on this show when it comes to delivering the news of the day, and that is, while a lot of other various news shows, it's been standard in the industry for a long time, radio, TV, newspapers, if it bleeds, it leads. Meaning, if there is a horrible terror attack, if there's a mass shooting, if there is something particularly violent and evil, it always leads the front of the show. And that's because people are more willing to click on that. Oh, it's terrible, it's awful, it's evil. They rush to it. We have a different policy. We make a point here on the Tony Kinnett Cast and at the Daily Signal to showcase law enforcement, which is successfully thwarting crime just as much, if not more, then we go through all of the grisly details of the crimes that succeed. And we're thrilled to say that the FBI and the Department of Justice were able to thwart a major terror attack underway in Albany, New York. So first of all, the summary from the FBI press conference itself up in Albany. Here you go.
I wanted to announce the arrest of Jessica Bowie, age 35, of Albany, New York. She's charged with one count of 18 U.S.C. 2339B, attempting to provide material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization, namely the Islamic Republic of Iraq, commonly known as ISIS. On Wednesday, August 19, 2026, Bowie was apprehended by law enforcement for her actions attempting to provide material support to designated foreign terrorist organizations.
Now, we've heard this story so many times in so many different ways and places. There is an American, the American converts to Islam, and then terrorism ensues. Now, I went ahead and did the search for you here just to get this right out of the way up front. I looked for the individual who converts through like the long process of converting to Judaism to see if like they, a lot of cases where they turn around and start doing terror attacks. I didn't find any. I looked for those who converted to Catholicism, who go through the process of confirmation in the Catholic Church. Are like a lot of people turning around and doing big, huge mass terror events right after that? Nope. Look for people who get saved the Protestant way, accepting salvation of our Lord Jesus Christ. And if they go out and immediately after getting saved, they go out and commit a lot of atrocities? Nope. Not finding it. Only seems to be that in this country in today's day and age, if you are suffering a mental break, or if you convert to a certain religion of peace, that this ends up being the way that certain things go.
Bowie had plotted to use an explosive device to attack the New York State Capitol and the New York State senators. The American people embody an enduring spirit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Values fundamentally opposed by foreign terrorists, organizations such as this one, and this defendant is accused of supporting.
Now, I know that a lot of people also have a standard where they don't show the photo of individuals planning and plotting kind of like mass terror events on camera. I'm going to here because this goober looks like an idiot, and I want to bully them just a little bit here. Just as, again, another standard here on the show. So this fatted calf is Jessica Bowie. She took the name Aisha Sarif. Now, a lot of the media outlets that traditionally keep certain names rather close in these particular patterns and places, they'll either use the name that's chosen by the individual, unless it happens to be, again, a name that suggests something rather particular here. So you're actually seeing Jessica Bowie a lot more in the news right now than you are seeing her chosen name, Aisha Saif. Now, this individual, this 35-year-old white woman, planning to, again, set off a nail bomb in the New York State Capitol, according to the FBI, had planned if that Capitol bombing had succeeded, she then planned to go to Washington, D.C. and attempt to kill the President of the United States. Now, she has previously called lawmakers infidels, pledged to ISIS, as you do, and then wanted the attack, according to her little manifesto presto, wanted to send shockwaves through the American system. And of course, a little Hassan Piker inspiration here, quote, "Praise be to Allah for September 11th, end quote. So this one's a real winner. Now, I don't know what it was specifically that messed up her little bombing opportunity. Here she is in her burqa, shopping at looks like a Home Depot here, and she appears to be buying the materials that she's going to attempt to make the bomb with. And no, that's not someone who brought in a large commercial roll of black canvas. Underneath that cloth is supposedly Miss Bowie here. So she's in her commercial, or she's in her, her full dress burqa. And then out at the vehicle, she then again moves to the side. And I reportedly, as one of the officers says something akin to "get my harpoon." She then takes her camera and tries to snap at the camera in her full garb here. So very, very, very interesting case for sure. Benjamin Weingarten pointed out as well, Bowie told CHS on Platform 2 that she had, quote, picked up some anarchist literature at the Social Justice Center. Oh man, the Social Justice Center. You mean all of the red, the Socialist Alliance with kind of the Islamification of the United States is alive and well? It absolutely is. She picked up this anarchist literature at the Social Justice Center for tips in planning her attack, which in her view, quote, could have some good tips, inshallah ta'ala. Based on my training and experience, I know that inshallah ta'ala is if Allah the Most High wills it. And I believe Bowie's reference to good tips was a reference to her planned attack. Very, 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 very interesting stuff. The number of individuals that are being radicalized because they believe that they are under great threat and just killing a bunch of American politicians is the answer through mass terrorist attacks, and encouraged openly, clearly, and wantonly by individuals like Hassan Piker, egged onto it. It's unfortunately become quite a common occurrence in the American political system. And right now, again, it does not appear that is going to slow down. So we're waiting to see, again, how that particular case proceeds. Again, thank God for the FBI actually getting that case acted on quickly so that terror attack was thwarted in New York. Now, in the meantime, I told you this yesterday, again, while a lot of the other outlets were reporting other things, that ActBlue, which is the Democrat grassroots donor political donation platform, again, yesterday we reported that Karen Bass of Los Angeles, the mayor, had released this video encouraging everyone to get on out there and donate to ActBlue so that her donations, if you donate to a Los Angeles mayoral candidate, in this case Karen Bass, the city will match your donations 6-1. Here's a reminder from yesterday.
Your donation to our campaign is more critical right now than ever before. Let me explain. Thanks to LA's Supermatch program, every qualified donation from Los Angeles residents is matched 6-1 by the city.
So a lot of people in the comments last night and in emails that we received and texts we received during the show were surprised to find out this is a common practice in a lot of blue cities around the country. All of these advertisements, all of them, every one of them, from Denver socialist candidates all the way up to Seattle and Portland, all the way out to New York with Mamdani's little chosen city council candidates in the last election, all of them point to ActBlue, the allegedly foreign-funded apparatus that the grassroots, again, grassroots meaning that it is primarily funded by individual donations as opposed to a large structured corporate donation process. That's all grassroots means, by the way. But anywho, ActBlue, how it would function, it was an opportunity and a way to take small form donations, and then ActBlue would do all of the work for the Democratic campaign and then allot that amount of money to wherever the money was supposed to be sent. So this is how, for example, James Tallarico has raised a considerable amount of money. The current trending campaigns, the top 5, according to some of the data pulled in here to me by our producer, Jen, John Ossoff, James Tallarico, Abdul El Sayed, Sherrod Brown, that's in Ohio, and then Mary Peltola in Alaska. That's where all of the money is going in ActBlue right now. And there's a bit of a problem for those particular candidates because ActBlue is currently under 2 different kinds of investigations. So in one case of federal investigation, ActBlue is under a Department of Justice investigation for not clarifying or following certain Federal Election Commission regulations. They didn't check addresses, allegedly, according to the investigation that's currently ongoing. They didn't actually look to see whether individuals who were supposed to be living in certain districts were allowed to donate. Like, I'm not allowed, I don't believe. to just write a ton of checks to several Democrat or Republican elections in other states if I don't live there. There are certain rules for individual donation contributions. Now, in the meantime, there's also another House investigation that is also leading into a Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice co-investigation into whether or not ActBlue is also taking foreign money, which is very, 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 very illegal. Radio crew, we have to send you to the commercial break before I'm fined for going over the FCC rules here. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We'll continue on the live stream while y'all are at your commercial break. So I told you yesterday, I said, hey, gee, this is interesting. I was looking through all the articles on this ActBlue information for you, doing all of the research. And I came across, as I'm not joking, Googling recent articles about ActBlue and certain funding patterns. I noticed a Legiscan document, like a legislative outlet reporting service, that pointed out that tomorrow, that being now today, Thursday, August 20th, ActBlue's leadership was again going to be before a House committee. So as a quick reminder, back in April, a bunch of ActBlue board members and officials were brought before the House committee. Some of them pled the fifth on everything. And then some of the ActBlue official testimonies stated, at least from board members, that, let me get this correct here. Up to 38 million contributions in 2024 showed signs of foreign origin. I'm going to repeat that. Not just a few foreign, dollars thrown in here. Not just, oh man, I was going to just send a card to my cousin in America and I accidentally donated to this candidate from France. Like, it's not just one case. 38 million contributions, not $38 million. 38 million different donations in 2024 appeared to show signs of foreign origin, which is very, very illegal. That is enough to get ActBlue shut down today, if that's substantiated. Now, you'll say, what's the legal argument from ActBlue back in April? Their legal team quit. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. So, anywho, since then, the fraud standards got weaker. Now, this co-founder, this Matt DeBergalis, showed up to House today and he pulled the Fauci card.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
The Fauci card in this case is where they ask all kinds of questions. Now, this is a closed-door House committee today, which I'm going to level with you. I kind of like those. I do. I kind of like those. I don't want everything to be on C-SPAN 3, ESPN 8, the Ocho, Corncob TV, and kind of like a mockery of everything. Not necessarily how things get done, but in closed committee hearings, often you get a little more cooperation. Because again, in the Constitution, this cool document that's supposed to run the country, Congress has these powers granted to it. And one of those things is to bring people before and have them answer questions. Pleading the Fifth Amendment is really supposed to be for criminal investigations, not where you show up to Congress and speak on matters that Congress is asking you to speak on. And by the way, that concept before the Bill of Rights was ever even a thing, and we got to the Fifth Amendment there, that was questioned and debated by John Jay and James Madison. Kind of went into that one in pretty extensive detail. So when he was asked questions today from Chairman Jim Jordan, the Oversight Committee, quote, how much fraud is too much fraud? And then from ActBlue co-founder Matt Bergalis, I plead the fifth. How many foreign contributions did ActBlue accept? I plead the fifth. Did you weaken the rules to help Democrats? I plead the fifth.
Oh, baby, a triple! Oh,
guys,
yeah!
I'm just gonna be rather frank with you here. That is a really bad look. And with all of these investigations already happening, again, right now it is a very, very spicy midterm. Very, very, very spicy midterm. John Ossoff needs these dollars from ActBlue. He does. James Tallarico is in a tight race with Ken Paxton. He needs every single dollar he can get. He's not going to get it from the DNC. The DNC is not just flat broke, they are in debt. All right? And you think that what? The youths are going to get out there and write mail order checks to James Tallarico? Like they're sending in a letter to Zoom in the 90s? This ain't PBS. It ain't working like that anymore. Abdul El Sayed is taking tons of money through ActBlue. Again, Sherrod Brown in Ohio. That's a close race. Mary Peltola against Dan Sullivan up in Alaska. Really, really not a place where you want to be. And just to be quite clear, absolutely ActBlue could be frozen by a Department of Justice recommendation through a federal judge. And it just so happens that a lot of election finance cases are taken up in the Southern District down in Florida, for instance. Old Judge Eileen Cannon, anyone? Huh? So, yeah, this wouldn't be a national injunction kind of thing, that's the really rough news, by the way, for the Democrats hoping the ActBlue is going to be fine. If ActBlue is frozen, it's frozen for everyone. It's not like a stock market kind of a thing. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. It is now time for just a little kind of a reality check for both parties. And that's where the news is now taking us here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. A lot of overconfidence, guys. Just a lot of overconfidence for no reason at all on both parties' parts. So a lot of polls and forecasts have now come out from, Nate Silver over at the Silver Bulletin or Cook Political. And they are suggesting now the Democrats are in this amazing position to take the House and the Senate. All of a sudden, just like amazingly. So, for example, according to Nate Silver's bulletin, Democrats 233 seats in the House, Republicans 202. Cook Political has tried doing some of that same stuff and has suggested that now there are 4 statewide race rating changes. So the Texas Senate leaning from lean Republican to a total toss-up, Texas governor race from a solid Republican to a likely Republican, the Iowa Senate race from lean Republican to a toss-up, and then the Iowa governor's race, the gubernatorial, from a toss-up to a lean Democrat. And the excitement is in the air. I mean, really, the excitement is in the air. And so what do the Democrats get out and do? Do they say, man, this is the time to moderate and get some momentum? Nope. They have Chuck Schumer in a Walmart golf polo get out there, and he is jumping up and down, and he just starts full-on embracing the DSA, the socialists that are not polling extremely well. So here's Chuck Schumer. Man, he's just so excited he can't stand himself. The overconfidence is surging.
Look, the bottom line is we're going to win Michigan. Let me tell you why we're going to win Michigan. First, El Sayed has brought in new energy and new talent.
Now, hang on. It was just a couple of days ago that Chuck Schumer told the Washington Post that Michigan was a wash. And in fact, Michigan was so much of a wash that, citing this Washington Post report, Harry Enton over at CNN did a full-on segment explaining that the Democrats' new plan for the Senate should be a a Southern strategy, which there's a little bit of irony in that for some of those watching the show who have been alive for a couple of years. I'm not joking. Schumer pivoting on this. Harry Enton did a whole segment about Schumer's new pitch for the Democrats being abandoning Michigan.
You're down in Georgia, right? It's part of this new Southern strategy that I think Democrats have. Their map to take back a majority runs through the South. What do we?
Oh, gee. But anywho, Chuck Schumer, he's so excited. He's flip-flopping back and forth. He's trying to woo over the socialists now because he doesn't want to get guillotined.
Into the Democratic Party, but also in Michigan itself. But second, Michigan, Trump has so bungled the Michigan economy.
Okay.
The numbers for Trump on how well he's doing in keeping costs down in the economy is in the low 30s.
Okay. So again, the economic news. Okay. A fair, you could make that kind of a fair argument. The issue on the Michigan case, though, is of all of the states that Trump goes to and has a pretty decent record, Trump has been rather Bill Clinton 1990 populist kind of economic in a lot of his implementation. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show with some of the tariffs and the on and the off again. If there is one state that Donald Trump has kind of invested into on an economic matter, guys, it's Michigan. And as far as Trump support on the economy among working class in Michigan, it is a lot better for independent voters in Michigan than it is for independent voters in Indiana, in Utah, in Texas. Trump is polling better with kind of independent, lean, union, traditional labor force kind of group in Michigan than he is in most other red and blue states in the country. So the argument doesn't even make sense here. But the real point of this is that Chuck is now trying to woo Abdul El Sayed, which is, guys, that's a little strange because you may remember this. Abdul El Sayed, who's having a time of it anyway in Michigan, he he doesn't like Chuck at all. In fact, he's like, I'm going to usurp him. He's like, in fact, I'm damn dangerous to Chuck Schumer. Here's Abdul.
If you're Chuck Schumer, I'm pretty damn dangerous.
Really? You thought I was like exaggerating? No, I mean, he wants to usurp him pretty clearly.
Well, God willing, I will be elected in a majority, and God willing, our next majority leader will be Chris Van Hollen. And
Chris Van Hollen. The Maryland man, margarita sipper himself from Maryland. Thrilling.
Senator Van Hollen will lead the effort, I believe, to pass the kind of war powers resolution that we need and to block funding for a war that is illegal on its own terms.
We'll get to some of the blocking funding and the Iran stuff a little bit later because we do have some updates on that. There is a new poll that like a B+ rated pollster that now has Abdul Sayed. All of a sudden, again, he's been struggling in the polls quite consistently. Now, all of a sudden, he's up 7 points. And everyone's like, whoa! The polling in Michigan is very, very volatile. And I've even said that before when clarifying the Mike Rogers support over Abdul El Sayed in the past. There's just some interesting, and again, that's not just me being critical. Some of the old heads watching the polls have said things in Michigan right now are rather unreliable. Either way, now is not the time for either party to get out there and celebrate and make a bunch of big decisions. So avoiding, maybe a bit of a concept here, avoiding really stupid scandals would be a good call. So Abdul El Sayed has, again, you may remember that yesterday he told a reporter when asked about black voters in Michigan, saying he is an Arab that doesn't like black voters. That was the question the reporter asked. Abdul El Sayed's like, I am also a fellow African, like you.
I mean, why don't you just make it just happen there? The guy saying you're an Arab, you don't care about black folks. I hate to say this, but I continue to hear it from older black folks, people like some of Denzel's colleagues telling me that they're uncommitted for you.
There's been an effort, I think, to divide people against each other.
Again, the guy who's like, there's been an effort to divide people from each other.
If you're Chuck Schumer, I'm pretty damn dangerous.
Anyway,
And unfortunately, you see that the consequence of that, to tell us that some group or another group have to be counterposed because there's not enough for all of us. I am Arab. I'm also African. My family immigrated to this country.
Again, when the reporter says there are black voters who say that you don't like them, and he's like, I am also African, my fellow African. How do you do, my fellow homies? He was roasted by this pretty consistently, and now he's doubling down on, again, so he's Egyptian. He's partly Egyptian, or at least part of his family is from Egyptian. And by the way, in the United States, actual classifications, Arab is still technically listed as white. But again, he's got to do the whole, where Pete Buttigieg, drank the 40, with the homies on the corner in the paper bag. Here we go.
I'm Egyptian American. I am both African and Arab.
I am African. Again, African is not an ethnicity. It is not. It is not an ethnicity. When the reporters ask you whether or not black people in Michigan have your support, because again, it is a known fact that he does not have the traditional black support. This is one of the reasons why Obama has to kind of come in and praise him, is because that is expected by the Democrat operatives and try to encourage Obama to get involved in the race. They think that's going to sway black voters. Now, that really kind of stopped after 2024 when Obama's like, you got to get in there and elect a sister. And everyone was like, excuse me? Yeah. Radio crew, we got to send you to the commercial. That's not the worst of Abdul in this moment. There's some rough stuff coming, folks. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, why that radio crew is over on their commercial break, and the TV crew as well, since we're at the bottom of the hour here on Thursday, August the 20th. Again, both parties are getting way too overconfident right now, and it's a weird thing to see. And I've said before, the party that is the most overconfident up to the midterms and in any election period is what gets their kneecaps busted. Here appears to be the same thing. Now, again, while some of the polling is volatile, Michigan Democrats are coming forward to endorse the Republican Mike Rogers. Now, that's something we haven't seen in a while. Michigan Democrat State Representative Karen Whitsett came forward and said this.
I do not think people really realize what is on the line. You will lose your health insurance. if the other candidate gets in office. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is what Medicare for All means. So if you enjoy going to ER now and sitting for 6 hours, get ready to enjoy that a whole lot longer, because you may be sitting there for 6 weeks.
By the way, this is the number one critique of people who are in socialist countries with universal health care. This is their exact critique. Ask a Canadian, and they will tell you about being on the waiting list for nigh on ever. In fact, the waiting list in Canada for their social health care is so bad that Canada is more likely to tell you to just kill yourself. So you have Democrats in Michigan going, you know what? There are a lot of people here who don't realize that if everyone is on welfare, then the welfare ain't going to cut it for anybody. She's correct, by the way.
That means you will be in a clinic, in a hospital, wherever they say that you go. Once again, you say you don't want government in your business. Well, the government will be controlling your health care.
So there you go. That's, by the way, this is the other argument. She's pitching. So the first argument is pitched more toward black voters. That's kind of a black voter talking point over in the DNC side. Again, at least according to my a Democrat strategist who kind of sometimes explains where some of the points are directed. Useful to know. That second point there, that's pointed at suburban women voters. You don't want the government in your business, right? Interesting case to be made from Democrats on behalf of Republican Mike Rogers.
They will control your doctors. They will control your medication. They will control your visits. They will control everything. So if for no other reason, common sense prevails that Mike Rogers is the candidate for you.
Okay. In the meantime, Democrats have been trying to go after Mike Rogers on data centers, the AI data center thing, and then the flock cameras. Now, I have said this before on the air. I'm going to make this clear again. There is so much overcalculus where people believe that everyone's coming out in the midterms. Everyone, you and your brother, your cousin. Guys, it ain't happening. From what I have seen on the data right now, it is not going to be a high turnout election. I just don't see it. Americans hating Congress does not mean they're going to get out there and vote for different people in Congress. That's not how Americans operate in a psychological factor here. It's just not. The Senate's slightly different sometimes, but it is a sometimes case. Data centers are not driving people to the polls, guys. It's just not. I know there are a lot of people that think, oh, it's going to drive out the Facebook posts. There's so many. That's not driving people out. It's not. So far, nope. The flock cameras thing, not going to do it. Even so, Mike Rogers is being rather politically smart. There was an investment report that came out that said, we're not quite sure on what AI data centers are going to do for or against Michigan. That's what the report found. So Republican Mike Rogers, after being attacked and being called Mr. Super Data Center, he released a statement and said, I am now endorsing just a 1-year moratorium on new data centers, just to wait until we see what's going on. Now, that is a smart political position to take. You know what? I hear y'all. Radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. Mike Rogers, Republican Senate candidate in Michigan, he's made a very, very, very smart call. He just said, look, there's a lot of people that have a little bit of the old grumpy tum-tums about this, and I am just going to hold on and wait for just a moment. And we're going to a little 1-year moratorium, and this upset the Democrats as well. Case in point, good old Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who occasionally decides to remind us all why Connecticut is most often worse than California. He's angry at this. It's like such a farce. Nobody believes this. He's running to be a part of the Republican majority in Congress that is using all its muscle to ban states from passing any laws, including moratoriums, controlling AI. Okay, so you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And this is how you know that Democrats do not care about data centers at all. Abdul El-Sayed does not care about data centers at all. He doesn't. The only reason that you are seeing Abdul El-Sayed talk about any of these things whatsoever, again, when Abdul El-Sayed was in favor of the mass surveillance state during the COVID pandemic, now all of a sudden he's, I'm very much against flock cameras and I'm very much against AI data center stuff. I'm that kind of a thing. Now that big tech is moving a little bit away from the far left and it's moving somewhat back to the right. Again, it's not like all at once, but it is starting to move away from it. Now he's like, any Republican that disagrees with me is in the super techno state. The techno state sounds kind of rad, by the way. I'd listen to that album. Anywho, so Democrats don't actually care. Mike Rogers supporting data centers, he's going to be crucified. Mike Rogers saying he doesn't like data centers, he's going to be crucified. Mike Rogers saying, I'm not sure yet, let's wait and kind of see, and maybe a 1-year moratorium in the meantime, he's going to be crucified. That's the standard. Just so that we are all very well aware. Now, over on the House side, and this is exciting, Hakeem Jeffries, he's also got his energy back, and a brand new video editor. So fresh off the college campus, Hakeem Jeffries has announced, again, the same Democrat representative who is also taking money from ActBlue, has announced he's going to investigate corruption. Bless his heart.
We're focused on making sure that we deal with the corruption that has been unloaded on the American people in such an unprecedented way. Because when you've got folks in high office, including the highest office in the land, unleashing unprecedented corruption on the American people, if folks are too focused on enriching themselves, their family members, their friends, and their donors, then they're not focused on making your life better. And so, beginning on day one, when House Democrats get the gavels, we're going to hold the crooks accountable.
Okay, so again, and by the way, on both sides of the aisle, no one believes this, which I'm going to be honest with you, that's kind of a good thing for the country, that no one hears a pitch. And I don't care whether it's a pitch from a Republican you like or don't like, or a Democrat you like or don't like. And they're like, I will get into office, and then I shall put my foot down, and there will be changes made. Okay, yep, sure. Yeah, that's real special. Nope. Don't believe it. No one believes it. Whether or not when there is some shenanigans going on in your own party, in your own place, it turns out that's really not what everyone else is leaning into the expectations of happening. So there is, again, when I say the kind of corruptions and shenanigans, I'm not just talking about ActBlue. The Eric Swalwell scandal, former House representative that Hakeem Jeffries previously endorsed and then had to turn around and walk away on. The guy who is on video doing some really, really gross stuff to women. You may remember the old Eric Swalwell, groping ladies and, pulling them over in hotel rooms, that kind of a thing. Well, that scandal is now worse. And it turns out other members of the House are so closely connected with their own sex scandals in the Democrat side of the aisle that Democrat caucuses are now begging the Republican ethics committees to speed up the investigation because they're terrified that this is going to be a lodestone around their neck in the upcoming election. So before we get to the new stuff here, there are some updates from over the weekend. This now just released, however. The FBI on Saturday seized former Representative Eric Swalwell's electronic devices as part of a federal investigation involving the sexual assault allegations against him. So they not only seized electronic devices from him, I believe, at an airport, but also they then went and raided his home over August 15th and 16th as part of this ongoing federal investigation. Saturday evening, agents approached Swalwell at San Francisco International Airport after he landed, served a search warrant, and then confiscated devices, including at least an iPhone with its charging cable and a MacBook Pro laptop. Reports indicate that he cooperated and wasn't arrested, though some accounts note that he was, briefly held for the search. The next day, agents executed a search warrant at his D.C. residence while he and his family were away and seized additional potential evidence, which sources say, this is according to the Washington Post, included further electronic devices and digital media. So the court records that we have access to here, the associated with the warrant reference, there are potential violations here under Federal Civil Rights Statute 18 U.S. Code Section 242 involving the deprivation of rights and aggravated sexual abuse and assault in certain contexts when tied to official positions. He hasn't been charged with any crimes yet, but is it likely he's at least going to get a little something? Yeah. Sorry, one of the comments it points out, I can't believe I said, yes, not lodestone around the neck like the magnetic rock for navigation purposes. No, not lodestone, the millstone about his neck. Thanks for keeping my English fluent and fancy. I also appreciate the support from the comment section in relief that the FBI also confiscated the charging cable or Eric Swalwell's phone and not just the iPhone itself. Kind of funny. Now, on the Eric Swalwell situation as a whole, there is additional information now coming out in which we have discovered Eric Swalwell disclosed some of the Chinese spy information a good long time ago. And basically a lot of the whole Fang situation could have been avoided entirely, not just if Eric Swalwell had some common sense and, didn't go sleeping around with any gal saying that she had loved him long time from, the Beijing intelligence service. But also, if certain members of the Democratic House caucuses had simply looked at Eric Swalwell's staffing choices, that it should have flagged, members of the House Oversight Committee who looked at the list and said absolutely nothing. Although there was evidence and record that some of those individuals probably should have been flagged, for example, by the Biden administration, and then going back into some of his service prior to being in Congress. I mean, this man enabled Chinese spies to access members of Congress. And it's one of the reasons why, for example, there's a big push for Congress to pass background check laws on their staffers. But that's probably another tale for another time. One particular clip from back in March, given what we know now about Eric Swalwell, as a reminder, this is from Western Lensman over on X. As a reminder, Eric Swalwell fought desperately to keep the federal government from releasing the quote unquote Fang files on his, again, leaking of information with or without knowledge to the Chinese Communist Party. Here's that particular clip as a reminder.
To try and smear a political opponent, I mean, it's just absurd. It's absolutely absurd. But as my lawyer, one of our lawyers told me today, and this really kind of stops you right in your tracks. He said if they do this, it'll be the greatest abuse of power by an FBI director since J. Edgar Hoover. And so those are the stakes, that we would allow the FBI to just go after the president's political enemies.
Okay. Again, a very, very curious thing to say that if these files on me are released, well, then this would be really terrible. There is also a group of senators that we've talked about in the last couple of days who have also been arguing that if the Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security attempts to, what's the right word here? If the Department of Justice and Homeland Security attempts to access federal Medicaid information, then this would be some type of grievous, horrible, evil, awful crime in a violation of privacy if Immigration Customs Enforcement were to have access to Medicaid and Medicare documents. Which, again, a lot of people are asking, why? Why is it so bad the federal government have access to federal information? That's rather strange. That is a very, very bizarre case. Now, again, I told you that there were additional sexual scandal cases. By the way, it should note real quick here before we send the radio crew away to commercial that the replacement, possibly for Eric Swalwell, Aisha Wahab, is just like the same kind of awful. And a lot of individuals on the insider circuit have pointed out could very well lose Democrats Eric Swalwell's seat.
So from January 2025 to roughly about September 2025, we saw roughly about 8,000 plus individuals in California be removed, right? Whereas in Texas, it is estimated, they don't have a clear estimated number, but it is estimated to be roughly about 3.5 to 4 times as much as California, even though we have a larger immigrant target population. And the reason for that is because of the fact that we make it very, very hard for ICE to conduct their operations here. We don't allow them on any state facility. We do not have our law enforcement work with ICE.
Just a treat. What a peach. Radio crew, we have to send you guys over to the commercial side of things. We're going to continue on the live stream here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. We'll see you guys in just a second. So we're going to move on from this goofball because I told you the Jimmy Gomez scandal is in fact just getting way worse. It is. It is getting way, way worse. So yesterday we reminded you that Democrat Representative Jimmy Gomez, a dude in his 50s out in California, is also now being hit with another sexual assault scandal in which his accuser says that when she was working for him as a staffer, he was getting handsy with her and all other forms of nonsense. Oh, also one of those times just happened to be at an Eric Swalwell party in 2023. Pedro Rodriguez over at the Daily Signal has a phenomenal summary of this. So, again, kind of as a quick summary here, the sexual assault scandals are continuing. There's some investigations in a House committee. Now, as of today, it's worse. Why is it worse? Because now we've moved from, well, as long as it was consensual, everything is fine. And, as long as everything was copacetic, I believe him. I think he's a really stand-up guy. Now we've done the Graham Plattner in Maine and the Eric Swalwell dance so many times on the left side of the aisle. According to John Solomon's crew over at Just the News, quote, the leaders of each party's House Women's Caucus urged the Chamber's Ethics Committee this week to release an update on its investigation into the allegations that Representative Jimmy Gomez committed sexual misconduct. So the House opened its investigation on Monday of this week after allegations again surfaced that he engaged in sexual misconduct with a female staffer of another Democratic lawmaker. Now, the Democratic Women's Caucus has now urged the Ethics Committee on Wednesday to release the status of their investigation while protecting survivor privacy before the 60-day blackout period ahead of Election Day. So there's currently a rule that says, hey, if it's within 60 days of Election Day, then you have to hold off any big ethics reports so that you can't accuse the congressional committee of trying to sway the election one way or the other. So it's a bit bizarre to see the Democrats and Republicans in the House very, very eager to get this stuff out on this guy. So the caucus said in a statement, quote, the recent allegations against Rep. Jimmy Gomez are disturbing and must be taken seriously. And the allegations of workplace sexual harassment against women must be investigated and, if substantiated, met with clear and meaningful consequences. So Florida Representative Kat Kamak, the leader of the Republican Women's Caucus, also urged the committee to release this update as quickly as possible. Because she says he has to resign. If there's any criminal conduct, it has to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Guys, it's very, very, very strange at this point to be watching all of these ethics investigations turn up considerable evidence that just really doesn't make voters want to come out and vote. Again, the midterms is all about coming out to vote for someone. The argument that people are going to come out and vote against Donald Trump, yeah, I really, really don't think that's gonna play very well. All right, now in the meantime, this the new strategy, again, kind of the strategy for Democrats as we move forward, because again, Republicans are just a little overconfident as well. Just to be fair, the Democratic strategy, kind of in the meantime, on embracing the far left is not good. Is not good. All of these weirdos that they're pulling out and they're running for office. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break, by the way. When Chuck gets out in front of the country as the Senate Minority Leader and says, these are all wonderful in our big tent. You've got, Jimmy Gomez that may be running around squeezing butts. And then you've got, again, like the old Graham Plattner situation. And you've got Abdul El Sayed and hello, my fellow Africans. And then you've got, let's not even talk about Angie Nixon in Florida, who's turning into a disaster and a half for Democrats. Well, yeah, I mean, when Chuck gets out there and says this kind of stuff, it's not a good look.
We've had relentless recruitment. We have impressive candidates. These candidates fit their states, but we're all united in the issues we're fighting: the cost and chaos and corruption.
Yeah, we're out there recruiting the new kids, the young folks. We're getting rid of the Eric Swalwells and we're replacing them with this Aisha Wahab. Now, I will say it's a little bad when Chuck is saying, oh, it's just Big Ten and it's youth goodness. And yet here we go. Another Hassan Piker special.
This might make its way to Fox News, by the way. So just remember, rapid fire. Do you support Medicare for all?
Yes.
Raising taxes on billionaires?
Yes.
Breaking up corporate monopolies?
Yes.
Canceling student debt?
Yes.
A data center moratorium?
Yes.
Codifying abortion?
Yes.
Abolishing and prosecuting ICE?
Yes.
Banning congressional stock trading?
Yes.
Ending Citizens United.
Yes.
Ending America's permanent wars.
Yes.
Ending all U.S. aid to Israel.
Yes. But like I said, humanitarian aid is important to me too.
Okay. A free Palestine.
Yes.
Okay. So again, kind of like the things that kind of sound a little bit nice at first, but again, with all of the really awful and ugly stuff just glued directly to it. And that's the old Hassan Piker charm and pleasure. And if the violent, bloody revolution just so happens to recruit the worst of the worst into the party, well, then you know what we're going to make. By the way, the articles right now showing that even if State Senator Aisha Wahab, if she, loses right now, then she's going to face off again. Like basically, like she's not going away. Nothing that she does. She is sticking here. She is around forever. That's the case that's being made. Now, on the other side of this particular strategy, again, the same crew that says, they hate the Constitution. The one policy that Democrats seem to be running on harder than anything else, the one thing they have is Medicare for all, Medicaid for all. We're going to provide universal health care for everybody. Lydia Moynihan made a pretty stellar point over on CNN Newsnight on a new study released on what this actually costs and whether or not this is actually going to be a thing. Now, the short answer that you all understand is no, but I want, Lydia to throw up the point here.
With the DSA, the alternative is the DSA, basically, Cato Institute just came out with a study that said if you implement all their policies, it's $200 trillion over the next 10 years. So you're looking at potentially...
So you can hear one person on the panel going, the DSA is not implementing policies. Chuck Schumer's made it perfectly clear that, hey, they're in the party, they're running it. They're the only ones offering policies. And that's the other weird thing here. All of the corporatist Democrat holdovers, like your Senator Chris Van Hollins and his crew inside the Senate and over in the House with Hakeem Jeffries, they have not proposed a single economic policy at all. None. No economic policies. Zero. They have endorsed nothing. They have no plan at all. Remember how much Donald Trump was made fun of in the 2024 election and after that one little debate where he says, I have the concepts of a plan for Medicaid, Medicare. And the people made fun. That's the Democrats' entire House strategy for the midterms outside of what the DSA is proposing. So it matters here how much it costs.
A lot worse if you embrace
Trump's
the other
economic
Excellent. Beautiful. Thrilling stuff. Now, let's actually dive into this because good old Pramila Jayapal, she's making it perfectly clear. She says right now, a brand new Yale study has supported what she says she has endorsed for years. Medicare for all doesn't just save money. Oh, wow. It actually saves lives. Now, this is new for me because this is a huge government spending program. So Pramila Jayapal on the left is now making the case that actually this is not only going to be a wonderful, amazing program, it's going to be super duper and it's going to be free and beautiful and amazing and oh, wow, it's going to be just the most wonderfulest thing ever. So she says that these savings come from paying no more than other countries for prescription drugs, cutting the bureaucracy and waste built into the system. Nope. You and I know there is no way a federal government, anything is cutting any kind of bureaucracy ever. It has never done so, even a little. Curbing fraudulent billing. Again, nope. Not happening. Then suggesting free ER, free everything for everyone all the time. She dives into this like Bernie Sanders kind of the Yale study says it would be very cheap. And it would save $1 trillion. It would save it. $1 trillion wasted into the ether. Saved. Amazing. Beautiful stuff here. She cites, again, all these little Yale study statistics. I dove into this for you, the people. None of this is even remotely true. This Yale study, and I'm not joking, the actual quantitative data in the study, the source the author pulls is just, dude, trust me. There is no actual calculating grid by grid price cost estimates like other economic policy studies and proposals. This is essentially a Yale study that says, we think it would save money. And they just cite current federal costs and say Medicare for all is not going to cost any more money, which is insanely stupid. Insanely stupid. I mean, impressive as well. By the way, just to give you the actual data here, as a quick reminder, since the Obama Affordable Care Act was implemented, the average annual expenditures for health insurance have skyrocketed. Essentially, here in this country, average annual expenditures for healthcare really should be around $3,000, to $3,200. Instead, right now, it's between, well, even since this particular graphics came out in 23, it's currently between 4,500 and 6,500, and it's climbing very quickly. And not just because of inflation, but because since the government instituted all of these wild insurance regulations, it has absolutely wrecked and destroyed any kind of healthcare price competition in this country. And the Medicare for All thing would only make it worse. And that's the fun part. Even if you taxed all the billionaires, and that's the fun part, even if you taxed 100% on all of the top earners' income, like all of the rich people in the country, you taxed all of them at 100%. They get no money, just a whip, and then you have a vacuum cleaner attached to their wallet forever. And even if you pretended that all of their assets were liquid, which they're not, that's not how having a net worth works. But if all of their assets were liquid bank accounts and you took all of that money, it would only be enough to fund the federal government at our current spending levels right here, right now, for 127 days. Yep. You were told, money? Sorry, Radio Crew, we have to see you later, guys. Sorry about that. Sly Dog caught me monologuing right into the outro of the commercial break for the Radio Crew. Whew. Brendan Carr, if you're listening, I'm sorry that I'm routinely a problem. Anyway, if you taxed Elon Musk, all of it, it's 22 days of the government funded. Oh, but you were told by some angry pink-haired lesbian at Who Cares University with a degree in Shakespeare was actually secretly polyamorous degree that if we just taxed Elon Musk, then unicorns would fart healthcare? Oh, that's not a thing at all? Oh, gee, Pramila Jayapal told me that Palestinians are all wonderfully amazing creatures and that if we just tax Elon Musk, everyone will just, again, start sprouting money everywhere. Gee, I can't believe that was a bold-faced lie this whole time. That's the only thing Democrats have, by the way, for the midterms. That's it. That's it. There's one other slight concern. Harry Enton, by the way, picks up on this, that there, like the huge swift swing in the country is going to be that Hispanic men, which supported Trump in 2024, are all of a sudden going to start supporting Democrats. I think he's reading that data wrong, but we'll get to that because I'm not quite finished with the socialism thing. By the way, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, also with a couple of comments on the national debt, since this is kind of related to federal spending, and we'll get to that. But Angie Nixon, the socialist candidate who's running to be the senator from Florida, she is now suggesting that she joined the Democratic Socialists of America, not because she's a socialist, because that's, really, really, really unpopular in Florida, especially among the massive Cuban population, but she's now suggesting that, well, actually, I was only really I was only really in it and getting, kind of excited because it's a big tent party and everyone's really friendly and I just like community.
So did you join DSA? Is this about the organizing capacity and less about the issues? Because even today, like Republicans across the country, but especially the Republican Senate Campaign Committee, they are coming out hitting you as a socialist. It's not-
Yeah, because that's an easy target. And by the way, Simone Sanders here, giving her kind of a little ladder to climb out of the hole. This is an example. I always show you guys examples of people doubling down and throwing, like saying, no, I don't want that ladder. No, I will pass. This is an example of someone trying to grab the ladder, but has never climbed a ladder a day in their life. And so they're like trying to climb up the outside of the ladder, or they're like licking the rungs. This is an example of someone failing to climb out of the hole, even though they're attempting to.
Not aligned with Florida values. But the answer you're giving today makes me feel like it's not about the socialists, it's about the organizing capacity. Is that accurate?
It's actually, it's actually about the issues that they care about the most, right?
Oh, I'm not a socialist. I didn't join because I'm a socialist. I joined because I care about the issues that socialists care about and endorse their solutions for those issues. Incredible.
Right. And DSA they didn't help me on my campaign. They didn't endorse me and anything like that.
Well, that's also because you're just bat-ass insane. Because you are not the kind of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs they like. but because all of the clips of you are just screaming and giving everyone else the fatigue.
But I am in somewhat of alignment with some of their platform issues.
Ah, yes. I love it. It's like, oh, I'm not a socialist. I just want all the stuff the socialists want. Excellent. Thrilling. Beautiful. Now, there are a couple of other people in the country who are on the left side of the aisle trying to find some ground to cover in other ways. For example, Governor Mickey Sherrill in New Jersey is out there doing the old, abortions are actually really hard to get. It's really easy. Anyone can get an AR-15. I've never heard this point before.
I came here to this Planned Parenthood right after Trump's hand-picked Supreme Court overturned Roe and turned back the clock on our rights. We knew then that states like New Jersey would have to stand in the breach and protect the freedoms that generations of women have. Generations, you say? Generation? Don't you have to have mothers and children to have generations? Fought for. In the past 4 years, 13 states, 13, have enacted.
Thank you for clarifying what 13 meant. 13, 13, the number after 12. 13.
Total abortion bans. It's easier to get an AR-15 in the United States than it is to get an abortion.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
It's easier to get an AR-15 in the United States than it is to get an abortion.
No. You don't have to get a background check in order to get an abortion. You don't have to go you go to Planned Parenthood. They don't make you fill out a bunch of forms. They treat you like cattle. For the preventative care too, as well, by the way. Talk to some of the ladies who have gone to Planned Parenthood for some of the pre-cancer screenings. And again, as one young lady put to me when I had a chance to interview her about her treatment at Planned Parenthood, her words, not mine, my sexual assaulter handled me with more care than Planned Parenthood when checking me up. So okay, best of luck to you, Mickey Sherrill, on this. I'm good luck with that. In the meantime, again, I said there was one last big super duper push. I want to get into the right side of the aisle though, because Harry Enton has made the case that the Republicans are in really big trouble because there's not a huge amount of support for Trump, specifically, for example, from Hispanic men. And I think this is important because you have people like Angie Nixon in Florida, who is thinking that because Donald Trump is maybe losing some support with Hispanic men, that automatically means Democrats are going to pick up that support, because that's how it works, right? That people are going to go vote in November, and they always are going to go vote in November. And people are never like, to hell with it. No one ever does that and just says, I'm not voting because everyone disappoints me. People are really misreading some data right now. But anywho, I want you to hear this poll analysis.
Hispanic men. Donald Trump put up a historically strong performance for a Republican candidate for president amongst Hispanic men. But the phrase this morning for President Trump is ay caramba, because look at these shifts.
First of all, I'm glad we are once again returning to the age where you can talk about a demographic and then throw in a phrase that is appropriate there. I'm just saying, just a small side note, we're once again, we're getting over all of this. That's cultural appropriate. You can't say ay caramba. It's funny.
Hispanic men on Trump. In 2024, he won among Hispanic men by 10 points. Look now where his net approval rating is. Down he goes into the Gulf of Mexico, minus 41 points and an average.
Actually, sir, that's the Gulf of America you're talking about? Anyway.
Of polls this year, that is, Johnny B, by my math, a 51-point switcheroo against the President of the United States. All of that movement that you saw, that historic performance that President Trump had amongst Hispanic men, adios amigos, goodbye, see you later. As Johnny B was telling me backstage, these numbers are bonkers.
Okay, now here's the fun part. Just because numbers go down somewhere does not mean they automatically go up somewhere else. The United States political system is not a closed loop hydraulic. You push down the plunger on one side and the plunger plops up on the other. That's not a thing in this case. It's not. Because then if you actually go and look at the crosstabs, have Hispanic men increased their approval rating of Democrat Senate candidates? Nope. They have not. Survey says not a thing, not happening. I'm afraid not, Steve. It's not on the board. And so instead, if what you're going to get in November is that Hispanic men just aren't going to come out and vote at all, or going to come out and vote less so, that's not bad for the president. That's bad for Democrats. That is very, very, very bad for Democrats. Now, again, the Southern strategy that Democrats seem to be embracing, again, another little Harry Enton clip here. It's going to be really funny to watch some of this stuff swing back and forth. A lot of people are getting really overconfident right now. I played a little of this clip for you before, but
You're down in Georgia, right? It's part of this new Southern strategy that I think Democrats have. Their map to take back a majority runs through the South. What are we talking about? Why don't we talk about Georgia? Look at this. John Ossoff up by 13 points. How about Roy Cooper, the former governor, up 9 points? And
now, to be clear, yeah, Cooper and Ossoff are in the lead. One of the reasons why I suggested that Whatley not run. Just a little hot take there. I would suggest, I thought he should have just stayed as the chair of the RNC. All right. And then Ossoff is a candidate to beat. Collins is making up some ground, but he's got a ways to go. It's an incumbent anyway. All right. Tallarico, I think a lot of people are overinflating. It still should be a smidgen concerning, but not like five alarm fire stuff. If this is the Southern strategy, folks, boys, girls, pals, I just don't believe that this is the plan. I don't believe it. I don't believe this is the plan. A very, very, again, some of the polling, a lot of people are making the case that because the president in a large state, maybe because the Iranian situation hasn't paid off yet, or the economic indicators that people are still waiting to see on, and they're unhappy about the prices of things, that this is going to say, oh, well, I have to go, select Bernie Sanders. No, polls don't show it. And when I mean the polls don't show it, I mean like the people that are out there like raring and ready to go. Did you guys know that voter registration across the country is kind of down for this midterm? Oh, you haven't heard that yet? Oh, just someone should tell you. Not a lot of people are signing up raring and ready to go register to vote. They're not really angry and concerned. You know where that's traditionally been in a lot of public like documents and media? In the Cook Political Report and in Nate Silver's Silver Bulletin. It's not in there right now. A lot of people are forgetting also the Southern District map. There's an argument that this is going to rally people to come out and vote in the South. My brother in Christ, that's not how it works. Just not how it works. Now, again, in the McMean time over here, I'm sorry, I got sidetracked for just a second by my booking producer, producer Lou, suggesting maybe we should get Hassan Piker as an interview for the show. I mean, if he wants to, do an interview here, and get his rear end kicked down the hall one way and then back up the other, he's more than welcome to. The fat little rich boy Turk, I'm more than happy. But again, I actually try to keep our show focused on some of the news and analysis that matters rather than podcaster wars. Just for a brief second before we get into some of the updates on Iran and, the Treasury Secretary and the economy, because again, the right is getting a little overconfident on some other things. We're going to cover that too. Before we do so, I do want to mention, speaking of the economy, because, hey, the national debt, it's getting kind of high, hit 40 trillion. Some people have pointed out the dollar's not doing super hot. In fact, the president of the United States has flirted with the idea, so is the vice president, at devaluing the dollar a little bit. And you may be out there and say, but I only have the dollars that I have. Maybe I want something that's stronger and is resistant to the withering in the brutal sun of inflation. Well, my friend, I have silver. I do. I keep some silver and ammunition. Silver and ammunition is my primary source of that kind of stuff. Now, again, most of my things are in investments, but I've got some junk silver. I've got some slightly fancier, shiny silver. Yeah. You know what? You might even consider just learning a little more about it. Now, gold is a lot more useful than silver used to be because they're using it in more, technological manufacturing, especially with semiconductor boards. Gold has an interesting place in there. It's not just coating HDMI, cable ends anymore. Gold and silver and its usefulness. I talk to Augusta Precious Metals. Again, sponsor of the show. I'm very picky. They're an excellent crew, and they are very kindly providing for my audience They are very kindly providing they're providing a gold educational tool to you. You head over to TonyTrustsGold.com or you text Tony, Tony, to 35052, and you get Augusta's free guide on gold, silver, investing, long-term retirement strategies, and some one-on-one educational web conferences where they just explain how gold and silver works, gold IRAs work, and that's it. They're not trying to sell you gimmicks. That's why I like them. There you go. That's the whole sponsorship. Now, back to some of the news and the nonsense, because boy, oh boy, new pressure is here. New pressure. The Iranians are not going to see it coming. Yesterday, there was a mail time question in which one of you, wonderful viewers, said, did you see the president issued a little hip-happening statement on Iran? And boy, howdy, did he. The president of the United States announced that no one has given the Islamic Republic of Iran a greater opportunity to make a deal than me, and they didn't take the deal. They didn't do it. And so now we're going to set up a major economic operation, the greatest economic D-Day ever taken. The U.S. bull in the financial China shop, kind of appropriate an analogy there, for Iran. Pun intended, let's say. So he says, the military is defeated, their factories are gone, everything is rubble. Again, mostly true here. Again, they still have some missile stockpiles that they are firing in rather unfriendly fashion. But essentially, the president is saying, we're going to do the full Scott Bessent-style economic embargo, and we're going to go after anyone at all who does any kind of economic business with Iran. Now, I will say it is rather interesting that the UAE just finally closed all of their little accounts. Again, I told you. The new Israel of the Middle East for the United States is kind of a vassal state, setting up some military agreements and getting jiggy with it. In Pete Hegseth's case, that's UAE. Now, the UAE is the United States' new, Israel testing ground military Middle Eastern outpost shenanigans. And a little bit of, get the jar, a little, hey, just so happens that appears to be what the president is trying to make happen here, getting everyone to cut off from Iran and Iran kind of going down the tubes. Now, the real test to this, Mr. President, will be China. It'll be China. If you can hold the same standards for China that you hold for the rest of the countries on Earth, well then, cool. Great. And by the way, he's not wrong here on the economic impact over in Iran. Sorry, the applause is still going there. Karg Island here, beautiful this time of year. There are no boats anywhere at all. 500 million a day not happening in Iran whatsoever in any way. So, is it the strategy that's going to deliver huge, massive results? Time's going to tell. So far, it's been a stranglehold that hasn't quite cut off the oxygen all the way. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, spoke on this today when he was also speaking on the U.S. national debt hitting 40 trillion. Yeah, I wish it was just 40 million. Also on oil prices somewhat spiking, which he said was a little strange, and it was a little strange to see. Here's the Secretary of the Treasury.
And again, we have asymmetric information, and I'm not sure why oil has popped up on this, because this, for now, and it is at the president's discretion. If we are doing the maximum economic pressure, then that means that likely there will not be a large-scale kinetic restart, but I would emphasize that is for now. And look, we do have control of the strait. You would have seen media reports that large amounts of energy are getting out, and I think that we can continue doing that in the southern lane, and that I think oil markets are misinterpreting what this economic pressure means.
Okay, so the key things to note there: the U.S. is maintaining the southern passage in the Strait of Hormuz. Number two, this is the economic plan. Now, from a military perspective, just real quick here, if you'll allow me, before we kind of finish and move on to the last point from the Secretary of the Treasury, who is a very, again, the two most highly rated members of the administration, who have the most favorability with this country when asked to the American people. Number one, Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Number two, Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent. They are both very, very highly looked on individuals. There was a long history in this country of the Secretary of State and the Secretary of the Treasury being rather important to the president. Shout out to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Alexander Hamilton. But in this case, regarding a military option, at this point, there are very few ways for the United States to effectively maintain the element of surprise. There has been a lot of leaks in the military to the press that have caused a lot of dyspepsia, preventing the United States from accomplishing certain military operations without certainty that U.S. troops are not going to be put needlessly in harm's way. Meaning this, if there is someone who leaks things from the S1 to the S2 shop on intelligence, communications, leadership strategy, logistics, then it allows the Iranians to move things ahead, just like Joe Biden announcing, in 72 hours, we'll strike this by the Houthis or that kind of an issue. So there are some good signs as well, because the Secret Service was able to keep the secret on, for example, the Trump Qatar plane Air Force One Switcherooski aboard the catering truck, a complete secret for a good month. Right? So there's some good and bad on the military intelligence and security side. If the president between now and the midterm somehow accomplishes a major political upheaval or a military operation, while currently under the appearance right now, by the way, this economic operation, the appearance the United States is putting forward is that they're kind of giving up on the military side, and they're just going to hold position and try to strangle Iran economically. Now, I do have to be realistic with you real quick. Religious fundamentalists, regardless of the religion, if they truly believe deep down in their hearts, whether it be an indie-fundy Baptist, whether it be a die-hard Latin Mass Catholic, whether it be a Sunni or Shia Muslim, whether it be an Orthodox Jew or a Hindu, or from me to you, whatever. If they truly religiously fundamentally believe that God is telling them to do something, economic pressure ain't going to do anything. It ain't. Because that's how religious fundamentalists ask. Tomorrow, if the economy collapses, I'm going to believe in Jesus Christ just as much as today. Literally, I mean, like, if there's one thing that people tell themselves or communicate what I would argue is a truth in the, the Protestant and the Catholic and the Orthodox circles, and correctly so, God is always in control. And so for a religious fundamentalist on the Islamic side of things, especially the radical, insane folks of the IRGC, a religious group, is economic pressure going to get them to go, okay, we're done, we give up. Please take rifles. And with the missiles, we're so done. I'm so sorry. Please, I stop. The kaboom, I'm done. Inshallah. Like, that's not going to happen because they're religious fundamentalists. Their truths don't come from economic indicators. They come from God. From their perspective, in this case, being wrong. Sorry. I'm not going to say it's just as right or just as real, but that is the case. And it being a false God, it means nothing. It means nothing. Ask the Maoists during the revolution in China. So those things on there. The president of the comments whenever I talk about this stuff is always fun. In this case, what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. I really don't. I'm not going to tell you guys, well, here's my plan. There is an option. If the Trump administration gets all of its cards in a row and chooses to act militarily and actually decapitate something, again, my advice, as though anyone would take advice from me, I'm just going to tell you what I would prefer. While the Iranian regime parliament is in session, send a ballistic missile, conventional, through the building. What's going to happen? The press is going to call you a murderer? Oh, no, they're going to do that anyway. Just do the stuff. Take Ghalibaf, Pazekian, and hang them from poles. Do it. And by the way, could there possibly be a risk if the Marines take Karg Island that we might, in fact, have some military casualties? Correct. But putting the U.S. in a situation where a threat is not dealt with will result every single time in far more military casualties. You got to finish a fight. Telling a bully you're just going to walk away and sanction their lunch money, yeah, that hasn't worked on North Korea. We've been doing it for a long time. Now, on the bright side, the North Koreans make really, really, really awful ballistic missiles. I've seen a lot of panic. South Korea convened a major 5-alarm fire, panic in the streets, military emergency meeting because South Korea put 10 of its ballistic missiles on some islands on the right off the coast of North and South Korea there, right off that sea, and everyone's panicking. Guys, Helen Keller firing from the hip would be more accurate than the North Koreans with any ballistic missiles. Russia just got their first case of ballistic missiles. That's not a sign that things are about to go down. That's a sign that Russia's running short on ballistic missiles. All right. Do you guys not remember the tests on ballistic missiles from the North Koreans? Seriously, those are not accurate ever at all. I'm sorry, South Korea's military is not that impressive either. Like, something about Korea's 1,500-year reign of slavery has really screwed up the economic and military innovation in that country. Oh, that's not nice. You shouldn't. I don't care. Sorry, it's the way that it is. Just the truth. Okay. Finally, I have been waiting to share this with you for the last couple of days. This is for you folks here. 8:21 p.m., 53 seconds, Thursday, August the 20th, here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. Those of you who are watching right now, if you would throw a like on the video, it would help. I'm so excited to share this with you. Because you know, if there was one thing, speaking of all the Iran stuff and all of the, we've got missile shortages and boat shortages in the USS Abraham Lincoln, it's sunk to the bottom of the sea and all of our bases are destroyed. There was this article that came out earlier this week that a lot of progressives and liberals, Democrats all over the internet were sharing, suggesting, well, and also the alt-right folks, those crews have been saying all of the U.S. bases have been destroyed that were resupplying the USS Abraham Lincoln. All of them were wiped, destroyed, just
erased from existence.
Now, that report's been walked back because, guys, we have freaking cameras and we can see the bases and they're not destroyed. But anywho, there's been a lot of this going on. Well, there is this guy by the name of Tom Nichols. Tom Nichols is a writer on staff of The Atlantic. You may remember The Atlantic from a lot of famous publications that have published a lot of really stupid things. Well, he also is considered an academic specialist on international affairs. And he's a serious never-Trumper. He also is a retired professor at the U.S. Naval War College. He's a guy the left goes all in on. All in on military matters of deep importance. And Tom Nichols fell for a Tony Kinnett style prank. If you have been in the trades, many of you out there, a lot of excellent men and women have been in the trades. You've ever taken an apprentice aside and just to mess with them, you told them to go get the pipe stretcher? Maybe you've been in the automotive industry and you have told it could be your wife, could be your son, could be the person, again, the apprentice at the auto shop, to go get the headlight fluid. You know what I mean? Make sure the blinkers are topped off before you, patch up the car. Maybe you need some new muffler bearings. That's, that kind of a thing. Maybe you work in information technology. Yeah. And you tell the newbie to go get the ID 10T form. Very important. Well, the military's got quite a few. And I remember this one, again, right at the beginning, the guy talking about the very first time I ever heard this joke was at Benning. A retired U.S. professor at the Naval War College. Okay, Mike Glenn gets out on social media and posts, breaking, must credit. He's like breaking, incredible. Must credit meaning you have to credit me, the one breaking this news in your article. All U.S. Army field artillery units have run out of lanyard grease, a critical component of indirect fire support for maneuver units. Not just any units, maneuver units. And if that wasn't bad enough, because I'm going to be quite clear with you, being out of lanyard grease, that's a 5-alarm fire. You know what? January 6th, part 2, incoming. If that wasn't bad enough, the Army's supply of grid squares is also believed to be running dangerously low. That's right. We're low on Patriot missiles, THAAD missiles, crotch rockets, and now we're out of lanyard grease for our dear artillerymen, then the maneuver units, and most importantly, grid squares. Tom Nichols, former professor at the U.S. Army or Navy War College, thank God not Army War College, and the Atlantic and the left wings, like premier international journalist expert man, is like, oh my God, we're out of these things. Let me send you my signal details. I need more information on this right now. Like, I got to break this story. These people are so desperate, so desperate to convince you that the United States is losing. of which there's no evidence, by the way. The United States, there's a British former special forces operator who wrote this big Substack article about how the United States has just suffered its most humiliating defeat in military history. And that we've like lost. And they're so desperate to do this, they are literally falling for snipe hunts. They are falling for summer camp, apprentice in the trades style jokes. Lanyard grease. Guys, I love telling you this. The U.S. artillery crews, most of the day, by the way, most of our artillery at this point is fired by like computer and rockets. We don't have as many of the old, long barrel artillery as we used to. And yes, while we do still, in fact, use some physical lanyards to fire, for example, the M777 howitzer, guys, there's no grease required for that. And grid squares, those would be the X and Y axis lines intersecting on a map. I'm sure that all of you have picked up on this by now. Our tanks aren't going to run out of blinker fluid. And in fact, the Navy is not running out of coastline. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I am so thrilled whenever I get a chance to actually, send this kind of stuff out to you, because whenever you think that you should be embarrassed that, maybe, maybe my generation's falling for all of the AI scams, and, my generation's got a bunch of stupid avocado toast eaters that are going for socialism. And if you're Generation X, man, most of my generation has just chosen never to grow up and act like adults. Not those of you watching the audience, calm down. Every generation has got its dunces. At least you, as a perceived expert, did not fall for lanyard grease and running out of grid squares. So to all of you out there, I do want to remind you, we are currently seriously short on supplies to build more MQ-9 cockpits. It's terrible. It really is a very scary thing. So send me lots of money to build more MQ-9 drone cockpits. Very, very important. There's more news to cover as we continue on throughout the rest of the week. But that's probably just about it for us here on the Tony Kinnett Cast. So we'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Helps us out a ton. And until tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, y'all, take care.
Every state is home to significant historic sites that tell the American story. But not every site is telling that story honestly and fairly. That's why the Heritage Foundation created the Heritage Guide to Historic Sites. This interactive guide equips American citizens with the tools they need to enjoy the sites that depict some of the greatest moments in our nation's history, analyzing them for historical accuracy, and provides resources for families or educators planning a visit. From Mount Vernon to Independence Hall to Gettysburg and more, Americans deserve transparency, and sites that steward our history faithfully deserve our gratitude. The Heritage Guide to Historic Sites invites every American to rediscover the places and stories that define our nation, whether it's across the country or in your backyard. Visit historicsites.heritage.org to start your adventure today.